Christian parenting.
Playing sports can be a great part of childhood, but sports can also get out of control. Join us today as we talk with our special guest about sports, faith, and family.
Hi, my name is Amy Rienow. Welcome to Family Vision, the podcast from Visionary Family Ministries, encouraging families through practical, encouraging, and real conversations.
Hi, Rob Rienow here with Visionary Family Ministries alongside my incredible wife, Amy.
It's good to be back here again.
And as promised, special guest today, welcome RW, our oldest child, not a child anymore. RW graduated from college in 2020 and married Emily in October of last year. RW, thanks for being a part of this. Take a minute and just introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show today. So let's see, I'm the oldest of 7 kids, grew up in Wheaton, Illinois. I attended Olivet Nazarene University, where I studied architectural engineering and played baseball there. And just recently, I married the girl of my dreams, Emily, in past October. So now I've been married for 4 months, and I currently work at RTM Engineering as a mechanical engineer, helping design buildings. And I just recently started coaching baseball again, so that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Okay, well, let's talk sports. Sports are a big deal for lots of kids, teenagers, and families. Today, we're going to talk about how God can use sports in the lives of our kids and our families to help us grow in our faith and in our character and even impact others for Christ. RW, sports have been a part of your life from the beginning.
Yes, and I can testify to that from such a young age. First of all, I can remember taking you on a walk when you were not even, well, I guess you were 1, but we were walking in a neighborhood and you started saying, who, and I was thinking, okay, I don't see any owls around here. I had no clue what he was talking about. And then laser vision, like through a backyard, he could see a hoop, a basketball hoop. So he was pointing hoop, and he really didn't have any words, but hoop was one of the first. But also, RW, you made life easy because even I had this playroom of toys, but from 1 to 2, all you would play with was a ball and throw it through the Little Tykes basketball hoop. And you were quite good at it. In fact, if YouTube had existed back then, or, the whole idea, I didn't really have the idea of videoing you and going on the Today Show, but we could have done that because it was really crazy how good you could shoot the little ball in those hoops. And I don't really believe in exploiting your children, but if we had, you probably would have been famous at a young age back then.
RW, tell us just about your sports journey.
Yeah, so as Mom said, at a young age, was very interested in sports and grew up playing basketball, soccer, baseball, golf every now and again, and of course just neighborhood football. Played soccer all the way up through middle school and then into high school, narrowed that down into basketball and baseball, where I found that while I enjoyed basketball a lot more, I was certainly more got gifted at baseball, and that's what then carried me to pursue playing in college, where thankfully I had a great experience at Olivet. I got to be a 4-year starter, which was a huge blessing, and got to play on a winning team that went to the national tournament. And it was just a real gift, and certainly a lot of lessons learned on the way, and it wasn't an easy road the whole time, but certainly look back on it with a lot of fondness, and definitely God used sports to make a huge impact in my life.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
We love the opportunity to take all those journeys with you. First subject we want to talk to you about today was parenting and parenting kids in sports. Everyone says, you hear it all the time, sports build character, but we know that's not true. If playing sports built character, as Vodi Bakum says, then the people with the best character in the world would be in the NFL and NBA. All they do is play sports. So, we know that's not necessarily true. So it's not just playing sports that does this. There has to be an intentional plan from parents and from the athlete to help the child grow in character through the sports. So what can parents do if they want to have their kids in sports and have a vision that it would actually help them grow in their character and their faith?
Well, I'd say, the first place to start would be if sports is a catalyst to developing character and godliness, then as parents, the way that you can help foster that is in the context of your child playing sport, really at whatever age, is like that is where the topic of conversation lies. So an example of that would be encouragement. So we want to be people who are uplifting to other people. And so if you see your child and he is, I don't know, constantly booing the other team, or maybe not cheering on his teammates but focused on his own, hitting or performance or whatever it may be, that might be an opportunity for a parent to step in and be like, hey, that's where they're able to do the shaping of their child's heart and encourage them in those character traits. I'd say too, like just encouragement overall from a parent perspective, whether it's in performance or character, is probably the biggest one. I mean, how often have you gone to a game and seen a dad or a mom yelling at their kid or yelling at the ref or whatever it may be from the stands? I don't remember where I heard this phrase, but it's, especially in the game of baseball, for the best players in the world get out 7 out of 10 times. And so they say that, the game will provide enough discouragement. Like, you already fail enough.
Right.
So the added pressure from mom and dad or grandma and grandpa, or whoever it may be, is just another catalyst in that child. And sometimes just having a hard heart maybe towards mom and dad because of some of those things. And so the more that mom and dad can be the, I'm with you no matter what, no matter how you perform, constantly encouraging and for the child in whatever they may be faced, I think is one of the greatest gifts you can give your child in the world of sports. Another topic I'd say is, if we're talking about character, a lot of times those fall into the categories of attitude and effort. Okay. So is my child, giving it his best, giving it his all, even when circumstances might be difficult, not playing a lot or whatever that may be? Or, is he having a good attitude even in the context of losing a lot? Or, whether he's doing poorly or his team is doing poorly. And so, you'll hear in sports that attitude and effort are the only two things that a person can control. And if you look at it, the best players of the world, majority of the time, have the best attitude and give the most effort and contribute. And so the more that you can concentrate less on the statistics or the performance based and more is how's their effort level and how is their attitude level towards their teammates, coaches, the game, everything, is a good litmus test of character and godliness.
That reminds me, RW, when you were fairly young, I think about maybe 8 years old, third grade baseball, I was driving you and your friend Weston to a baseball game, and I was feeling that conviction because I can remember even those young times you'd come back from a game and we'd go, how was the game? Did you get a hit? Those were, did you make a play in the field? Those were sort of our top questions. And I remember you and I talking about that and being convicted that, those shouldn't be our first questions, right? Because that's teaching him to be so performance oriented. So on the way to this game, I decided to kind of test this out. You were pretty young, and I'm talking to you in Weston and talking about, why are we playing this game? Why does God have you on this team? And he wants you there to encourage your teammates, and I want you to really even be thinking about Jesus during this game. And I'm doing a nice little spiritual baseball character 101, if you could call it. And JD, your younger brother, is listening the whole time to all of this. And you both received it very well, and we prayed, and you went off to play. JD came over to me in the middle of the game, and he's 4 at this point. He looks at me, he goes, Mom, I know it's important that we encourage our teammates and play for Jesus, but when I play T-ball, I'm going to crush them. I still can remember that face. So my point is, these are conversations you have to have over and over again, right? Not just one time.
Oh, yeah, totally. And at any age. I mean, you can be, I'd say especially at the younger ages, elementary school, even middle school, these are where you have the greatest amount of influence in shaping these, characteristics or ideas. But even into high school, college, it's more than become a matter of pursuing your child's heart in those, and kind of instead of being on the, hey, consider this as I want you to encourage your team today to your 5th grader. It's, hey, how are you feeling like, you're meshing with your team, or you're giving them the opportunity then to kind of release or have more of a conversation of what their thoughts and feelings might be or what they're struggling with, to then you can help guide and push them in the right direction.
That's really good.
Okay, RW, let's talk about dealing with coaches. You've had a lot of them in your life, and you had to go through a transition where you realized that you needed to play for Jesus even more than playing for your coach. So talk about that.
I'd say my first kind of poor coaching experience was middle school baseball.
Oh, I remember that well.
Yeah. Where, I was an above average player on the team, and I just had a coach that really didn't like me for some reason. And in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, like baseball is still in this fun category where there's not really a lot of stress and pressure, and it's just like you're out there with your friends having fun. And so it was a very odd experience where, you're trying to play your best, but then you're not necessarily, getting put in the, get top of the lineup or whatever it may be. And so, and also being then subject to like a favoritism of sorts with a coach's son on the team and things of that nature. And I'd say that's where it really started. I think God knew that I'd have a lot of coaches that were difficult in my sports life, where God really used that specifically in those middle school ages to really point my heart towards the Lord, and that, if I was going to find any enjoyment or of affirmation, it wasn't going to come from my coach in this scenario. It was going to come from my parents and from the Lord, just trying to play my best and work my hardest. And still, in a way, enjoy the game even through difficulties. And that shaped up, year after year, even going through high school basketball, where I had 3 different varsity coaches in 4 years. And there's a lot of complaint amongst players. And, it all adds up to, who are you playing for? Are you playing for the Lord, or are you playing for the affirmation of your teammates or your coach or whatever that may be?
You said something in there I just want to go back and touch on, that you said in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, baseball is still in that fun category. And that's a really important point.
Yeah,
and I
is.
want to just bring that back because sadly, as you would probably say today, that's not true for a lot of kids. Because in this intense travel culture that we've developed, and not just in baseball, and in a lot of these sports, we see that fun category kind of disappears a lot earlier, right? And what can you speak to that?
Yeah, a lot earlier. Just the other day when I was teaching lessons, I was working with a 10-year-old, and the dad came in and was like, and I just got my 8-year-old into his travel team, and they got 50 games this spring, or whatever it may be. And my heart kind of sinks a little bit when I hear that, because over the last 10, 15 years, kids' sports has ramped up in its intensity and schedule and time commitment, even at, 8, 9, 10 years old. And I'd say the saddest part to me is that in my mind, it's just you're putting so much time, energy, effort into something that should be a lot of fun and not stressful, but it's becoming a stress not only to the kids in a lot of times, but also to the families. It's financial on finances. There's a lot of other things that go into it, but on top of that, parents feel like they need to do that for their kids in order for them to be on the 12U team, to then be on their freshman high school team, to then maybe even go play college. And there's a strong reality that in many times the greatest gift that you can give your kids, at least from just a strict sports perspective, is just give them the joy of the game, which is keeping it light and stress-free, and put them in opportunities where they're going to have fun, Lord willing, with good coaches that are going to provide the skill training and the character building and things of that nature. Like, for example, I would say like an FCA type program, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, has a really unique, way that they're reaching out to these kids, where they're trying to give it up, a Christ-centered baseball or basketball or whatever is experience, and still try to provide, high-level competition, but also try to make it in a way that's comfortable for families to be a part at whatever level of engagement they want to be. So if they want to play 20 games instead of the 50 games or whatever it is, like, there's some opportunities for, families to be able to still have their kids be in a high level, but not be in the extreme where their family is running around every weekend playing tournaments in 4 different states on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah. It's interesting, the research and observations on all of that. And this whole subject, we should probably do just a full episode and part 2 of just talking about this issue of travel sports. But, rapid fire thoughts, one is that they've done these studies where the elite 6th grade players are not necessarily the high school varsity players.
Correct.
And they are not necessarily at all the college players. you have some kids that are quote unquote dominating in 6th grade and they're completely burned out or injured by 8th grade.
Yep.
Or they become so discouraged with the pressure. There's no sense of like childhood sport. Like you say, it's 60-game season for whatever sport they're playing. They've got some hard-nosed coach that's making them miserable. The parents are spending a ton of money on those teams at those early ages. And we've tried to take the approach with our kids to do park district in different sports and be a multi-sport player if your child's really into athletics. Do the multiple sports, do park district through 6th, 7th grade. And then if you have a child that's demonstrating a lot of passion and desire to play high school, well, maybe 7th grade, 8th grade.
Yeah.
Look at one of those travel opportunities to beef them up and get them ready for high school. But we have seen more harm than good.
Correct.
From too much travel too early, financially, emotionally, athletically, you could go down the line.
And I just want to say on that, even when you were that age, I can remember it was in 4th grade, there was a push after 4th grade to get into the travel sports. And we thought that was early. And you can even speak to this, that a lot of those kids, like you're saying, they did those travel sports. How many of those boys went on to even play in high school?
Yeah, very few. I mean, this is specifically baseball here, but for those who went off to play, travel baseball in 4th, 5th-ish grade, the majority of the kids that I knew in that age did not end up playing even high school baseball on their freshman team. And that was not necessarily from a lack of talent. It was from a lack of motivation because they just did not want to continue to play. They didn't find the joy in the game anymore.
Right.
And that it couples with, as parents, you talk a lot about, mom and dad, just about pursuing your child's heart. And sports is, in a lot of ways, not much different in that, you're trying to foster their skills and their joys. And so if you see a child that's really, finds a lot of joy in playing sports, then a lot of your mission and role is to put them in opportunities where that can flourish. And not just from a performance standpoint, but from a enjoyment, character, and opportunity for growth standpoint.
Just using their gifts.
Yeah,
right?
just using their gifts.
Yep. Well, one of the powerful character lessons I've seen you learn over the years is putting your teammates above your own personal performance. I remember during your college baseball years, you said so clearly, I would rather play a terrible game and have my team win than play a great game and have my team lose. So share how the Lord, because that's a little bit unusual from a lot of athletes, share how the Lord worked in your life over the years to bring you to that way of thinking.
Yeah. So college is obviously a lot different than high school. The biggest thing being that is the scholarship portion.
Right.
So everyone, all 35 guys on my team are getting paid to play baseball. And so then as a coach, the coach of the team then has every opportunity to play whatever 9 guys he wants to put on the field because he's paying everybody to play there. So there's not a lot of room for complaining or mom and dad coming up to coach after the game and being like, hey, my son's not playing. And so then what you see is for those players who are maybe in the mix or in competition for a spot, there's a huge temptation then to want to drag down maybe the person who's in front of you or competing with you at any step of the way, whether that's commenting on his performance or even commenting on his life outside of baseball or whatever it may be. And what I found over playing, praise God, at a team that won a lot is when you play 50 games in the season, you're going to have games where you play really well and you're going to have games where you don't play well at all. And so part of that sort of attitude and effort, going back to that, is can I, really say that I'm playing for Jesus when I'm down in the dumps after a game that I didn't play well? Obviously, I'm trying to perform my best for him, but if that's impacting my attitude and effort outside of baseball, then that's really does more harm than good. And so, again, when the competition is so fierce in college that it's very easy, and again, you see on every, there's brawls and fights, and we had a couple of those over our time, and the competition brings out the worst. Yeah. And so to be able to, say and really believe that even though I had a bad game, I can be happy that my team won, you're giving yourself up to something that's bigger than yourself, which in a lot of ways is similar to what we are with the kingdom of God. When we choose to follow Jesus for the rest of our lives, it's, I'm giving up my own individual life to play on this bigger team. And so, and in
That's a great
baseball or any
picture.
team, it's the same way, where you're giving up your own individual performance for the betterment of the team. And obviously, when you perform well, it helps your team win, and that's great. You don't perform well, and your team loses, that's when it really stinks. But
Right. The double whammy.
yeah, the double whammy.
So you said that competition brings out the worst in people, and I often think that is true of parents as well, right? And as a mom watching you play sports all these years, I know that my emotions can sometimes contribute to even being more difficult for you if I'm too caught up in some of the things that you're talking about, and we see
Right.
that in parents. So kind of specifically, what do you think RW moms and dads should continue to say, and what should they avoid saying?
Yeah. Continue to say is, again, we've commented on it before, but any positive encouragement, and I would say specifically towards attitude and effort. You know, if you see your child giving the best attitude, cheering on his team, smile on his face, no matter what the circumstance, that's something to be praised. If you see them working really, really hard and, you know, giving their teammates high fives and running as fast as they can for a loose ball or whatever it means, that's something to be praised, even if they don't get the loose ball, you know?
Right.
And so I think that's number one. Despite performance, if you see attitude and effort, that should always be encouraged. Absolutely. I would say avoid. Okay, so for the older, you know, high school, even middle school, avoid talking if it's a bad game, right? And you see positive attitude and effort. There's a lot of wisdom in just letting your child start the conversation. If they want to talk about the game, if they want to talk about it on that day, so be it. Maybe a day or two later, if you want to revisit, you know, and say like, hey, do you want to talk about, you know, the game? You know, again, you're trying to just open the door to let your child share. At those older ages, I think does more harm than good if mom or dad's trying to knock down the door into,
Yes.
you know, whether it's criticizing play, whether it's criticizing even attitude and effort on that standpoint. Now, if it is an attitude and effort issue, there's room for mom and dad to come in and be like, hey, you know, we said we were going to do this, and I'm not seeing the effort that I'd like to see, and just have a conversation about it. So I'd say the do's are encourage attitude and effort. The don'ts are, again, especially for the older kids, it's knock on the door to let them share with you.
And some of my favorite memories, RW, is going to those away games of yours in high school and having you drive back with me. You know, we driving through Portillo's, getting some food, and just those are treasured memories for me for those conversations and those car rides. And I'm sure sometimes I did it wrong and probably, you know, like you said, knocked on the door too much or talked about a bad game when I shouldn't have. And then I hope a lot of times I did it right, because those are such precious times that you have with your kids. And I just want to encourage parents that, you know, don't waste these pieces, because you'll never get those times back. And I'm very thankful for all of them.
Yeah. RW, your whole family, mom and me, we were really blessed by you using the gifts God gave you in sports to be an example for Christ, to encourage your teammates, to lead a teammate to Jesus. That was an incredible story that maybe we'll share another time here. But thanks for being willing to share your journey here on Family Vision. And you are back for our next episode talking about the influence of the firstborn child. So friends, that is going to be a great conversation with our W next week, and you don't want to miss it. As always, you can send your comments and questions to us at podcast@visionaryfam.com. Drop us an email, podcast@visionaryfam.com. We would love to hear from you. And if you need encouragement and equipping for your family, find us on any social media page. Just search Visionary Family Ministries and like and subscribe and follow. We'd love to build a friendship with you. We also want to invite you to a special family retreat with our family this summer. The Visionary Family Weekend Away, June 11 to 13, 2021. It's at one of those amazing water parks just north of Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. It's going to be a great weekend for your whole family, all ages, teenagers, grandparents, to grow closer to God and to each other. And you can get all the information at visionaryfam.com/retreat. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Family Vision.